feel like I need to limber up.
Okay, so this is like your pre-show ritual is doing a handstand.
Yeah, we'll usually do it as a warm-up to most things when we have something. I'll do it now, I'll give you now.
Okay, let's have a...
It's more like, okay, so say you're going on stage and you're doing stand-up, and before it you're nervous and you need an outlet for it. It gives an outlet for it.
Sure. So you guys do handstands and I drink a pint of golden syrup. Same principle. And welcome to the Vegan Life Podcast, the podcast that's all about good food and how to eat it. And our special guests today are two poster boys of the vegan movement, David and Stephen Flynn, also known as the Happy Pear. They can boast book sales of over 250,000, 500,000 followers on Instagram, and pretty much the same again on YouTube. Not only that, but they have a quote on their press release from Joe Wicks, fitness coach, online PE instructor, and my arch nemesis from Lockdown 1. I hate you, Joe Wicks! I don't really. But Joe Wicks says of them, the Happy Pear boys are my go-to for incredible vegan recipes and for a smile when I need some positivity in my day. And now, obviously, if you've heard any previous episodes of this podcast, you'll know that healthy eating and cheerful, upbeat positivity aren't necessarily my strong points, but we'll plough through this anyway. With a special show devoted to something I am actually very interested in, which is how to have a happy gut. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Just quite a lovely intro. Great crack.
Let's talk about your new book because it's going to be very pertinent to this. It's called The Happy Health Plan. Now, I've steadfastly maintained that with hard work and dedication, anyone can follow a vegan diet and still manage to look as appallingly out of shape as me. You two, though, are quite depressingly fit and handsome. Now, if I buy your new book, will I be as dishy as you two, and will I have a dreamy Irish accent as my voiceover agent is pretty keen on it?
I think the handsome pills are really important. You got to get the handsome pills.
Do you sell them? Are they on your website? Because so help me, I'll buy them.
They're very expensive, Jake.
That's fine. Whatever it takes.
Don't know about that, but the new book, it's been really fun, and it really happened. We wrote it during lockdown, during the first lockdown. We had realised that for the last 10 years, we've had more than 50,000 people through our online plans from all over the world. And they were all based about supporting people to eat a plant-based diet. And we had incredible results. Like we had
incredible. Is that incredible?
Incredible.
Yeah.
That means incredible 2.0.
Okay.
Incredible results. So where like people lose lots of cholesterol, lots of weight, and regulate blood pressure and improve their gut and so many different things. And we partnered with all the experts.
Reduce your cholesterol? Is that to lower your cholesterol?
Yeah, to lower it, yeah.
You can
Thanks for the clarification.
I think you mean
I really
Resus.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we'd had all this data, so we put it all into a book. We'd never put it into a book format, and it's been an incredible, because the courses, like, they started out as me and Dave, two hippies, two chancers having a punt at it. We had seen the impact of changing our diet to eating a whole food plant-based diet and how that had affected our health, our energy, our kind of joie de vivre. And we started a fruit and veg shop 16 years ago. And we started from this real idealistic standpoint of wanting to create a happier and healthier, more connected world. So two hippies with a dream. Our background wasn't in vegetables at all. We had degrees in business, masters in business. We were set down the American dream road. And midway through, we said, hell no. We want to be hippies. Yeah, we got hit by broccoli. Broccoli just fell from the sky.
I would venture with 50,000 people signing up to your online course. What you meant was, how do I apply my business now to my hippie values?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, how do I make peace and how do I unite them? Well, those have been things that we've had to figure out or are completely figuring out. But as part of the back journey, we ended up we typically grew up meat and two veg, and then we ended up going traveling and we got hit by broccoli and we became vegan all of a sudden, and we gave up alcohol and we started doing yoga. And then Stephen had the idea one day, Dave, why don't we start a vegetable shop and try to start a food revolution? And I said, great idea, Steve. So we started it and we called it the Happy Pear. And
why did we call it the Happy Pear, David?
Because there was 2 of us and we were selling pears.
And other fruits and vegetables.
And other fruits and vegetables. So it was like a pun. Do you get it? Pear. And so roll on about 4 or 5 years into that journey.
We had opened up a cafe.
And we'd realised that, as Stephen said, we had got so much benefits from changing our own diet that we said, well, why don't we try to run a course? So we did an experiment. This is back in 2010, and we got a local nurse on board. We put up signs around the shop. It was a total experiment. We wanted to see what happened if we put people on a plant-based diet for 4 weeks. This is in 2010, so it was long before any Netflix documentaries. We got a nurse to be on board. The nurse measured the whole 20 people.
Angela.
She measured everyone's cholesterol, weight and blood pressure. We had 20 guinea pigs. They came upstairs to us. We taught them how to eat vegetables, how to make vegetables taste good.
Literally how to be guinea pigs.
They didn't come because they had pre-existing heart disease, or they didn't come because they were overweight. They came because they were probably bored and curious. What the hell are those weird lads going to be doing now? This type of thing.
And there was, it was a Walt Disney finish, and everyone's cholesterol came down and their blood pressure regulated, and, fairies came out. It was a really positive story. Yeah. And
from that, it received kind of national attention. We were kind of featured in a number of national newspapers, and the course started getting too busy. We were still getting up at 4:30 a.m. and going into the fruit market and cooking in the cafe every day. And, we were working hard. It was like, I don't want to do that course all the time. So we kind of had this big idea, let's build an online course, Dave. That sounds great. And we thought it would take a few weeks and it might cost maybe €1,000. It took us about a year to build, and a lot more than that. And back when we started, it was back when people were nervous about putting their credit card details into the internet. So it didn't really work. But I guess over the years, it's evolved, and we partnered with a consultant gastroenterologist. That's a digestion doctor back about 3 years ago, Dr. Alan Desmond. And cardiology. We built our Happy Gut course, and that had about 20,000 people with remarkable results. Just simple things about applying a kind of controlled FODMAP approach, which sounds technical, but
the crux of it is now, just so we come up for air here, because I feel like we're going on solo runs here.
No, I had a feeling I wasn't going to have to work too hard on this podcast. I could just sort of wind the 2 of you up and sit back and watch you.
All you got to do is just stir the pot every now and again. Yeah. Just stir the pot. Come on, I've got a great idea for you here now. So that was the premise of the book. The book is called The Happy Health Plan, and it's got all our learnings from having supported 50,000 people through our plans. And even 2 days ago, we met a guy in Woodies in the hardware shop here in Ireland, just up the road. I was in buying tools and buying screws and stuff.
Manly stuff.
Because we're really manly. We're manly vegans. And the guy behind the counter said to me, he said, I've lost 50 kilos in 5 months following your book, The Happy Health Plan.
Well, he said it's changed my life, he actually
said it's changed my life, but it was 50 kilos in 5 months.
50 kilos?
That's a lot of weight, like.
That's a person.
Yeah,
exactly.
I know.
Yeah. Wow. That's astonishing. Wow. That must feel so good to kind of see the results like that.
It's quite remarkable, because often, I guess, with online, you can be a bit detached from it. You respond to comments and they're all lovely. But when you meet someone in the flesh, and I'm there with my kids and my wife, and they actually stop me to say that, I'm like, oh, wow, geez, my work actually touches real life people. I forgot about that. I thought they were just people on a screen, this type of thing.
It's nice to meet people in the flesh and for there to be 50 kilos less of it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, good dude. That's
amazing. So the book is it recipes? Is it what is it?
It's got 25,000 words, and the words are really to get you to eat the vegetables. But the words are really all the learnings. Like, we've got bits by the cardiologist and the gastroenterologist and the dietitians, and our own learnings and the practical hows and whys. Because a lot of people know they should eat more whole foods, and I use that word should. A lot of people would like to eat more fruit and veg and beans and whatever. And, there is all the reasons why. And then we've got over 90 delicious plant-based recipes. And the thing about all the plans is that there's no oil in any of the recipes. So they're all you can eat, no calorie counting, no portion control. And you will lose weight like Lean did.
Amazing.
Maybe not to the same extent, but.
No, sounds good though.
Yeah.
We're going to come into all sorts of things. You mentioned FODMAP, and we're going to come onto that in a bit. But before we get into the listener questions, what's the vegan scene like in Ireland, and how has it changed?
We'd probably be crap gauges of it because we live in such a bubble. And in our little bubble, plant-based.
Everyone eats a vegan diet.
Most people eat a vegan diet. Everyone has nutritional yeast in their house.
Of course,
everyone's barbecue is vegan. Of course it is. And everyone makes sourdough bread and drinks kombucha, and so we wouldn't be a very good reflection of what
we started eating a vegan diet back about 20 years ago, and when we first came back from traveling to our own little town, we knew of one guy that happened to eat a vegan diet, and our town's quite small, back then it was about 14,000 people. And I remember calling up, I knew his brother well. I called up Gavin Keller. How are you, Gav? Just wondering, is Andy there? And he said, why do you want to talk to Andy? Because Andy was known as the town vegan and people used to mock him for it. And
it's the only vegan in the village.
Andy on it was, how are you, Andy? Steve? Yeah, just wondering, any chance we could meet up and talk about what it's like to be vegan in Greystones? And we had a little support group, because back then it was weird. Even when we opened the cafe, we didn't label it as vegetarian or vegan. It was just healthy. You couldn't buy, dried beans or lentils in the supermarket. You had to go down to the health food shop because they were secret under the counter, health foods. It was, it was back in the days where there wasn't kind of, meat substitutes and all this type of stuff. It was a lot more, plant milks were something weird. Wow, they sell soya milk.
Yeah.
But I guess it's changed massively.
And now even today, and I do mean that we'd be an awful reflection of what the society is at large in Ireland, because our little bubble is, if you surround yourself with people that do similar things like you think that's the norm everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think we're a reflection that
but even if we speak from our own experience, so we started with a cafe and the business has grown in lots of different ways, but we started out back about 12 years ago. Our little brother Dara, he was doing triathlons for Ireland. And he was competing at a high level and he was looking for an edge. And at the time, I remember we wanted to thank our mum and dad for, all the help with us starting up the shop. And we wanted to send them to Hippocrates Health Institute in Florida, where it's all about building up your immune system through green juice and sprouts and enzymes and all sorts of lovely things like this. And we couldn't quite afford to get them there, but we got them nearly there. But they went. And they came back and, they were very excited, and they got Dara taking wheatgrass and sprouts, and he found it really helped him improve his performance. So he got mad into it and he started a sprout farm. And back a few years into that, or a few years on from that, he was supplying sprouts to the shop and maybe a couple other shops. Then there was an outbreak of something bad with sprouts in
Sprout
Egypt.
foot and mouth.
Exactly, that was it. So people stopped buying them. And at that point, Dara looked, what else can I sell? Because I have a bit of a business here. So he started selling a pesto that I used to make. And then from the pesto, it came granola. And now we have 50 products that we produce and distribute in about 1,000 stores in Ireland.
All vegan
and
products.
Dubai and in parts of the UK. So pretty amazing. But I guess that's just even shown just how, mainstream, it's the biggest supermarket in Ireland, Super Value, how they've such commitment to more plant-based foods because I guess the social appetite, the market there changing.
Have you got out of the habit of, because I've been vegan for 10 years. I still have a moment whenever I see a new vegan product, I have to buy it, and I have to buy like 4 because I'll never see them again. These are precarious new fledgling companies and I want to support them, and I'll probably never see the product again. And so I end up sort of stockpiling food simply because I'm like, it's vegan, get it. Have you grown out of that? Have you evolved out of that now?
Yeah. I'd say definitely. Well, we're in a weird position. We have a cafe and a shop, literally I have one about 100 yards from where I live. So it's like, I don't even really stock that much stuff at home. You walk over to the cafe, you get it, you go to the shop and you get it. So we're kind of in a weird little bubble. But I admire your sense of support of the vegan brethren.
Every purchase is a vote, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very true. That.
Now then, as always, we welcome your questions on anything food related, whether you're looking for substitutions, replacements, advice or inspiration. It's podcast@veganlifemag.com. We've had lots of questions, so let's get to them. Maria asks, I hear the Happy Pear brothers both talk about FODMAP foods. What does this mean? Yes, you mentioned it. And what's a FODMAP?
Okay, so FODMAP, we didn't know what a FODMAP was back 3 or 4 years ago. It wasn't until, as Stephen said, we started a Happy Gut course with a consultant gastroenterologist that's also a vegan plant-based gastroenterologist. So he works in the NHS. His name is Dr. Alan Desmond. And we decided, well, why don't we build a gut course that's really all about improving your gut course and have someone top of the medical food chain. So that was Dr. Alan Desmond. And then we got a dietitian, Rosie Martin. And the three of us as a partner, like me and Stephen, Rosie and Al, the four of us, we partnered and we built this Happy Gut course. And we did the food bit and they did the science bit of it. And as Stephen said, we've had 20,000 people through and it gets amazing results. And what we focus on is a FODMAP controlled approach, which FODMAP you probably haven't heard of, you may have. It stands for...
It sounds like a Ministry of Defense thing.
Yes, it's the Ministry of Magic. It's code to the Ministry of Magic. No, it's fermentable oligosaccharide, disaccharide, monosaccharide, and polyol. So it is a...
Okay, well, that's an instant 20 points for that. Well done. Yeah, that was amazing.
That's an abbreviation, or that's an acronym. Yeah. But it really means fermentable carbohydrates. So in our foods, you know the way our foods, part of the digestion process is we ferment the foods, and that's how we break down lots of nutrients in it. So there's certain foods are more fermentable. So that would be the likes of garlic and onion. The allium families are very fermentable. So are beans and lentils. So are nuts. So are, there's a number of, each of those 5 categories of different foods associated.
So they're called high FODMAP.
High FODMAP foods. And what we found in our Happy Gut course was that, like, typically when someone goes on a vegan diet, they might go from a standard Western diet, which is meat and 2 veg. They have very little fiber in it. And as you probably know, fiber only comes from plant-based foods. So when you go from a diet that's of white bread and chocolate bars and chicken breasts and a bit of broccoli here and there to go into beans and lentils and whole grains, things can be a little windy.
Like, so the average diet in the UK and Ireland would get around 14 to 16, even to 17 grams of fiber. And when you suddenly move to a whole food plant-based diet, you could be getting 45 to 60 grams a day. So you're almost threefold the amount of fiber. So as a result, there can be bloating, there can be wind, and there can be
gas and digestion issues.
Discomfort.
So if you go on a low FODMAP diet for a couple of weeks, our Happy Gut course is 6 weeks, like FODMAPs are super healthy first and foremost. So to go on a low FODMAP diet is a short-term thing, but it can really help your digestion improve. It can help your sensitivities kind of become less sensitive, and it really can improve your microbiome. So it can be great for people that are transitioning and they've had gut issues. It can be really useful for people with bloating and digestive issues and loads of different things. And through that process, they'll find out which ones they're more sensitive, which FODMAPs are the ones that typically trigger them. And people might find, oh my God, it's chickpeas and I used to eat a full pot of hummus every day. Or they might find, when I eat too much garlic, I just get bloating or whatever it might be. Yeah. So those are FODMAPs, and that's how they relate to digestion. Really.
So FODMAPs are not necessarily good.
They're very healthy. They're extremely healthy. They're essential for everyone to eat them. But if you do have bloating, it can be hugely beneficial to cut them out for a period of time.
Or to cut out the high ones.
The high FODMAP foods, yeah.
It took me a long time to realise that bloating is just a sort of media-friendly way of saying blow-offs.
Farting lots, yeah.
You're
combustion.
your gaseous chamber is at max capacity, and
that's really interesting.
Right the rear end.
What are the most common kind of triggering FODMAP foods, or does it really depend?
I'd say it could be beans, but it could be garlic and onion. The allium family people can make people quite bloated as well. So it depends. Depends on the person and their previous diet history. The level of sleep they get, how much movement they do, how much antibiotics they've taken,
how much time they spend outside.
Yeah, really, it all depends on their microbiome and how diverse it is, and their immune system, all these various things.
For others, it could be a ripe banana.
When you say how much time they spend outside, is that this thing about breathing in the stuff that's flying around in the woods?
Bacteria.
Is that a thing? But that's a thing, right?
Is it like fairies or UFOs?
Let's start with fairies.
No, there's a lot of research kind of suggesting that the more we expose ourselves to different ecosystems, the more we come in contact with a biodiversity of bacteria, and hence we have a stronger, more diverse, more resistant immune system, because 70% of our immune system exists in our small intestine, which is known as our microbiome. And our microbiome is a fancy term for the collection of bacteria and microorganisms that exist, and they kind of thrive. There's a symbiotic relationship. They're often called like our little pharmacy. They kind of help produce various different hormones. They're just so vitally important. And the more biodiverse and varied they are, the stronger and more resistant your immune system is. And one of the main things you can do is obviously eat fiber-rich foods. And then the other thing is exposing yourself to different bacteria. And you can do this through different ecosystems, such as spending time in the woods, in the meadow, at the sea, and like getting your hands in the dirt.
Just walk down my road. There's
or just
tons
go
of
on the
different
tube.
bacteria down there.
Go in the tube, yeah.
Go on the tube and like just no, sorry, I'm
Yeah, no, I've heard stories. That's brilliant. Okay, I'm going to look into the FODMAP thing. Amy asks, I find myself, due to lockdown, feeling low in mood. Can food make you happy? If so, what food should I be introducing into my diet and what food should I be avoiding?
Oh, great. I would say the first food to introduce into your diet is laughter. The second one is fun. And then the third one is friendship. Having the crack. And crack, I mean fun. That's the Irish word for fun.
Yeah, don't eat too much crack.
Often we can get caught up looking for kale. Kale's going to, address our self-esteem and our self-identity issues. Or maybe it's green juice. Or no. It's goji berries. And I think, health is multifaceted. And I think when we feel down and lonely, often we can turn to food as a means to address it. But as humans, we're hardwired for human connection. We need it. It's part of our very makeup. And even with research from the Blue Zones, they found one of the most important factors was social integration, and the second one was close relationships.
And even in terms of longevity, they talk about the two biggest factors in terms of longevity is number one, your natural close relationships, so your friends, your family. But even more important than that is your loose social connections. Is those like when you get a cup of coffee, saying, "How are you, John? Yeah, the regular, a latte," or walking down the street, "How are you, Mary? Lovely day. How are you, Pat? How's your dog?"
It's this social integration, this ability to feel connected and a part of something is so important. So I think it was Amy who asked the question. Yeah. I'd recommend, obviously it's a really challenging time for all of us with the social isolation and the social distancing and all this. But I think if where you're living, you can still go out and walk, say hello to people. If you can walk with friends, reach out, try to be honest, be vulnerable. Vulnerability is really important for connecting. And I think it's just to become more aware that one of the most important foods we as humans can do to consume is friendship. And I don't mean by eating your friends. I mean just by spending time in their physical, presence and laughing and joy and friendship and curiosity, I think are so important.
Well, that's a gorgeous answer. I mean, that's just a big warm hug of an answer. That's adorable.
Well,
you two are adorable.
Saying, technically, goji berries are very good for just like loads of amino acids, and they'll definitely make you happy.
You could, in terms of diet, there is a huge link between your gut and your the smiles.
Yeah, we found that in our Happy Gut course and our Happy Mind course that food has a serious component. And as Stephen said, the smiles research showed where they put people that were clinically depressed and they changed their diet to more a fiber-rich diet, that it had significant improvements on their mental health. And
so it's to try buy fiber-rich foods. Fiber is something that most people in Ireland and the UK are deficient of, that they're not even getting.
And that's 9 out of 10. And it's even 9.5 out of 10. So it's the vast majority of people aren't getting enough fiber. And even I was just going to go back one, because we mentioned the word vegan a lot, but I can eat a vegan diet and I can just eat chocolate bars, vegan donuts, vegan sausages,
and
vegan cream buns.
Thank you.
And I am a vegan, but I'm not very healthy. So whereas the trick in terms of gut health and in terms of mood and in terms of well-being is to eat more as more whole foods as you can. And that's the fruits, that's the vegetables, that's the beans, it's the whole grains, it's the nuts and seeds, because those are the ones that are going to give you more stable energy, more
and feed your microbiome
moods.
And make it easier to sleep and less give you the ding 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 ding.
Yeah, it'll support less anxiety and better resilience to stress.
Amazing. I mean, that was a less cuddly answer, but it had some great practical tips. They were both great. Let's press on. Kathy says, I hate eating breakfast. I'm purely a coffee before I run out the door person, but as everyone tells me, it's the most important meal of the day. Can I have an easy, quick recipe I can eat in the morning?
I think, first of all, Kathy, you don't have to have brekkie if you don't want to. You're a grown-up. And if coffee is your brekkie, that's good. Well,
does that mean I can eat cake mix for breakfast?
You could if you want to,
you
have to deal with the consequences.
We had cake for breakfast this morning, actually.
2, so that was good.
Yeah, but were they real cakes?
They were real cakes.
Oh,
were they?
No, we had multiple cakes. I tried multiple cakes this morning.
Yeah, but were they sprouted alfalfa cakes?
No. These were all vegan cakes as well. But there was
a chocolate salted caramel tart.
Okay, that's
there was
good.
a plum frangipane. There was some type of carrot cake.
There was a coconut and gorse flour muffin. It was very nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
This was at sunrise on the beach at about 6:45 a.m. this morning. But anyway, we've diverged from Kathy's
Back
question.
to Kathy's question. Where was I? I was on some
Breakfast.
Breakfast.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was going to do a handstand.
There's a lot of research kind of saying that intermittent fasting is very beneficial for longevity. And intermittent fasting is a fancy term for increasing the amount of time you have between your last meal of the day and your breakfast, meaning your break fast, when you break the fast. So, if you don't feel like having breakfast, Kathy, you don't have to. We all have different circadian rhythms. And for some people, you've kind of gotten the habit of, this looks weird, doesn't it?
You've got wings. It's amazing. I love it. You're about to take off. It's brilliant.
Okay, I can show you his head. Look, there it is linked to his body.
Amazing.
Yeah, sorry. Is this distracting at all?
No, not at all. It happens all the time.
But yeah, I think, everyone has a different relationship for food. And Kathy, if you don't feel a need to have breakfast, that's cool. Just as we've said previously, focus on trying to consume as much whole foods as you can. And typically your digestion is at its peak at the middle of the day. Because if you think back in older, more agrarian times, you had the dinner at lunchtime.
Which was high noon.
When the sun was at the highest, as your digestion was at its optimum. And then in the evening you had the supper, which was generally a kind of lighter.
Tea and a bit of toast.
Yeah, it was a lighter, kind of more easier to digest. So, but whatever works, Kathy.
I would say experiment with yourself, because sometimes I realize if I eat brekkie too early, sometimes I'm busy snacking all day. Whereas if I eat brekkie a little later, sometimes I'm, your system works different. So you've got to keep evolving and playing with it.
Great advice.
vague answer.
There you go, Kathy. You're a grown-up. You've got this. Be you. Miles says, the most common thing you hear as a vegan is, where'd you get your protein from? Is protein the most important nutrient? Should I be focusing on consuming more protein or more fiber?
Absolutely, protein is so important.
No, I would definitely say more fiber. And I'd also say I'd bring it back away from food. I'd go because focus on whole foods. Focus on the whole foods. That's the main thing. The fruit, the veg, the beans, the whole grains. Because more than 50% of calories eaten in the UK, it's 55% of calories eaten in the UK are ultra-processed foods. So we're eating a hell of a lot of junk foods. Approximately 40% are animal-based foods, and then about 10% are whole foods. Whereas if you can really shift your focus onto eating more whole foods, you'll get more fiber, you get more than enough protein. You really, really will. And outside of that, I'd focus on the other factors that make us happy, healthy, wholesome humans. And I'd go back to that warm, fuzzy thing of, I think so much, we live in an age where people are so disconnected. We're spending so much time on social media. We're spending so much time in screens that if you can get more purpose and meaning and more connection with other humans, the food bit will become less important to be perfect with.
Am I right in thinking people generally grossly overestimate how much protein we need?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I think there was, I'm trying to paraphrase
Michael Greger.
There was a study where there was 70,000 people were involved in it, and they measured the protein intake between omnivores, vegetarians, and vegans, and they found they all got well over the RDA, the recommended daily intake of protein, and the only ones that were deficient in each group were the ones that weren't consuming enough calories, as in weren't eating enough food. So, even a friend, Dr. Colin T. Campbell, who wrote the China study, he was doing a piece of research where he put people on a whole food plant-based diet, as in a healthy vegan diet, and to see could he possibly design a diet which was deficient in protein, and he had to give up the research. He said literally people would have to be eating nothing but French fries to be deficient in protein.
French fries, crisps, and chocolate bars.
And happy to volunteer. Happy, if you need it.
Even if you think for yourself or ourselves, say we all know a few hundred people. I've never heard of anyone call in sick or not show up to work because they didn't get enough protein the previous day. It's so rare. For people to be deficient in protein.
Whereas you do hear people not coming to work because they're constipated or they've got bad digestion.
Yeah.
Or it's running sugar.
I did. I was involved in this scientific research project where I just ate French fries, and I didn't get to work. Before we have more listener questions, let's ask the eternal question. What do you do? What do you do with tofu? Yes. What do you do with tofu? Now, I'm just curious. We ask everybody this. It's just, what is your general go-to recipe with a block of tofu? What would you do with it day in, day out?
I'll go first. I'm lazy, I'm easy, and I tend to do it the same way every time.
For anyone listening, Dave's easy.
I'll get a 300 gram block of tofu, I'll drain it, pop it in the chopping board.
Is that firm tofu or is that silken?
That's firm tofu. Great question, Steve. Thanks a mil. I'll chop it into small little bite-sized pieces because I want maximum surface area to infuse with maximum flavour. Dun, dun, dun. Then I'll get a 1 wide bottom non-stick pan. I'm going to put it in a high heat. I may add oil. I may not. Okay. I may add a couple of sprays of oil. I'll lash the tofu on.
That's a technical term.
I will lash the tofu in the pan. I will cook it, stirring it regularly with a wooden spoon for approximately 5 minutes, ensuring that each side nicely sears and becomes a little bit golden. So,
there's no way you're going to sustain this voice for the whole recipe.
And then I'll take 1 bottle of tamari and I'll approximately add 3 to 4 tablespoons of tamari, and I'm going to incorporate it slowly over the next minute. I'll add 3 to 4 tablespoons of tamari. I'll mix it around. It'll go whoosh, and there'll be quite like smoke and sizzle, and it'll almost be like a magic trick. I'll turn the heat off then. I'll take out nutritional yeast. I'll add 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, maybe 3. I'll incorporate that round, and that's the tofu ready. And I'll probably serve it on top of maybe some pre-cooked quinoa. I'll probably put the tofu on top of it. I'll probably serve it with some sauerkraut and hummus, and there's dinner, and it took me about 8 minutes.
Lazy.
But it's a winner.
Yeah, it is.
But it's so flavoursome. They look like dog biscuits, but they taste amazing.
That was a review of Westlife, wasn't it? Steve, what about you?
I'm going to go with something a little bit fancier. I like taking, say, similarly, firm tofu, an organic 300 gram block. I will slice it into triangles. So I'll chop it approximately 1.5 centimetre to 2 centimetre thick. I'll chop them into little rectangles like that and cut across them so they're into kind of lovely little triangles. Like when you went to have lunch with the Queen and she served you triangular sandwiches and you went, ooh, I should cut my sandwiches like that.
I can't believe I told you that story.
Yeah, exactly. And then I would get an air fryer and I would put them in the air fryer standing slightly up, and I would leave them cook at medium heat for about 10 to 15 minutes. This dries them out and increases the grizzle factor significantly. Then
what's happening with your voice is why?
Sorry. Then I'm just trying to create a bit of artificial
drama.
Yeah, it's
an audio medium, so voice is all we've got to play with.
Then I'd mix together a dressing. So I might base it, if I wanted to make, say, a barbecue sauce, I might base it on tomato puree. So I'd go 3 tablespoons of tomato puree, or also known as tomato paste, if for any US listeners. Then I'd go with 2 tablespoons of tamari or soy sauce. I'd go with 1 tablespoon of maple syrup. I'd go with half a teaspoon of smoked paprika.
What about apple cider vinegar?
Yeah, I'd go with maybe half a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. I'd mix it together. If I felt it was a little bit too viscous, I'd add in a tablespoon of water. Mix it together until I get a nice barbecue sauce. I would spread that around each side of the tofu until it's nice and covered. No, actually, I wouldn't. Actually, I'm going to fry the tofu then until it sears on both sides. So heat a non-stick pan, approximately 30 centimetre pan.
No, you would already... No, sorry.
Did you throw out the air fryer? That's gone.
Yeah, I took it into the air fryer, and then I'm just going to fry it so it sears. Sear is the fancy term for kind of like it browns on each side and it's kind of sealed. And then I'm going to pop in my dressing. I'm going to get a bit of spread it around on both sides, turn it off the heat, and just make sure that that maple syrup kind of glazes and contracts along the surface of it. And you end up with this kind of like a pork chop like tofu. Like where you're eating it going, wow, that's grizzly. Is that actually tofu? And you go, yes, baby, that's tofu. Sorry, excuse the drama.
Who won? Who won?
Oh, no, there's no winners here.
Everything's a competition.
No, we're all losers. So, well, it's interesting that you asked that question about you're talking about spraying oil or not spraying oil, because Liv asks, what are good oils to cook with? I've started using spray oil, but I don't get the crisp that I want. Yeah, I wanted to kind of cut down my oil, and I got a little sprayer thing, and it tastes disgusting. I've been using it like a breath freshener. That was a mistake.
You could get a spray oil thing and just get the oil that you like. Yeah. You know, they do spray oil in olive oil and rapeseed oil and sunflower and other things. So oil is like oil. We don't put oil in lots of our recipes. In all the health courses which we run, we don't use oil because oil is one of the most calorific dense substances on the planet. So it's 8,000 calories per kilo, 4,000 calories per pound. And if you think about it, like, okay, so sugar gets an awful rap for being a processed food. And we go, boo, bad, do, bad, sugar's awful. And everyone agrees. But with oil, when I say oil, people go, what? This guy's a lunatic, blasphemous, oil, moron. Should we put oil on everything? And sure, just bear with me one sec. So oil, say olive oil, you take an olive, we pick it from the tree, we put it through a press. And
stone press on the Greek island.
A cold pressed oil, and we put it in a cold press, we flatten it, and we pretty much just extract all the oil. And there's no fiber left in it. There's traces of vitamins in it. There's no minerals, and there's only fat. We've just got one macronutrient, and we've got pretty much no micronutrients in it. And it's just fat. The only nutrients are 100% fat and traces of vitamin E. So it's just like liquid fat. Like it really is, and that's all it is. So it makes, like, to our mammal brains, which evolved looking for fatty foods because it meant we were more likely to survive so that we could pass on our DNA, our evolutionary genes go, boom, fat, yes, good, bing, 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 bing.
Because fat has, I'll just break up your enthusiasm there, fat has twice the calories when compared to protein and carbohydrates. So fat is generally more beneficial to our mammalian brain.
To our evolutionary mammal brain. But yet nowadays, I walk into every store and most things have got extra added fat to it because and that's what makes them addictive. You know, we've got fats and sugar in the perfect combination. Our mammal brain goes, oh my God, that's so good. And it tastes so good, but it's not good for our medium, long-term or short-term health. Back to oil. Oil, good question. Oil, I would say to use, like, spray oils are brilliant because you use less of them, and you can also cook without oil. And the thing about cooking without oil, now you've got to make your own mind up. I'm not saying you do or don't or anything. So oil, as I said, 8,000 calories per kilo. And say for a tablespoon of oil, like lots of our recipes will use a tablespoon of oil. Instead of a tablespoon of oil is 120 calories. Instead of that 1 tablespoon, you could eat 4 cucumbers. You could eat 39 cherry tomatoes. You could eat half a head of iceberg lettuce, or if you were a real horse, that's a horse, you could eat pretty much a whole head of white cabbage. So, and that would be 120 calories. So, and you wouldn't even notice, like, oil, no oil. So what we're saying is on all our health courses, we say you can eat as much as you want, no calorie counting, no portion control, because it's all whole food, plant-based with no oil. So oil comes at a cost if you're going to use it. You know, it's got added calories, but it will add more fat and more satiation. So if you are going to use oil, I think a spray bottle is really useful. And I would say just get it in the type of oil which you like.
And in terms of health, it's kind of like saying what cigarette is the healthy cigarette? You know, it's kind of like what sugar is the healthy sugar? Everyone wants to know, it's maple syrup, but they're all a refined sweetener that we're best in terms of our optimum health to reduce the amount of them we consume. And similarly,
but saying all this, there's people that live to the age of 95 years of age and they don't like vegetables and they only smoke cigarettes and they drink alcohol and they et cetera. So everyone's going to make their own mind up. We're not being prescriptive in any sense, but this has been our own experience.
Good democratic answer, Dave.
Thanks, Steve. Well, I don't want to isolate our listeners.
Are there nutritionally some oils that we do need? Like I'm thinking like omega-3. Is that
yeah, we can get them all from. See, the thing is, it's to try to get them in their whole food source. So to try to, like, I can eat olive oil or I can eat an olive. The olive will be packed with fiber, so it'll slow down and it'll aid my body to, ingest these fats a lot easier. If you're concerned about omega-3 and omega-6 and you're kind of conscientious that you might be deficient, you can supplement very easy with kind of algae that are good sources of it, or just even focus on consuming a few walnuts and kind of mixing up.
Seeds are packed with them. Every morning for breakfast I eat chia seed pudding because it's packed with omega-3s. I'll have chia seeds and ground flax in it and top it lots of fruit and put almond butter. And sure, I'm elected after it.
And if you are worried, you can get your blood tested regularly just to see are you deficient in anything. And then okay, I'll start supplementing.
Yeah. And I will say chia seed pudding is amazing if you deep fry it.
In oil.
Yeah. Kenny asks, I find myself getting really bloated after I eat, and we know what Kenny means by that now. He says, granted, I may have just eaten a bucket of pasta. I'm a big guy. Is there a good dinner I can eat that will fill me up but won't make me feel bloated afterwards?
Yes. We've got lots of recipes we've got over 400 recipes in our YouTube channel. They've got more than 38 million views. And there's quite a few of them are low FODMAP. So if you go on there, we've got some nice creamy pasta bakes, which are low FODMAP. That means we're using gluten-free pasta, and we've made sure all the ingredients are low FODMAP. So I'd say there's at least 30 low FODMAP recipes. So check them out. And if you want to learn more, we've got a Happy Gut course, which we've had, as we said, we've got 20,000 people through them, and that gets really good results if you want to learn more about it.
Excellent. Kenny, hope that helps. Hannah says, what's the best way to increase my iron intake?
Two really simple, basic ones. A friend spent a bit of time working out in Africa, and she said when they were cooking their dinner, they used to take an iron bar and drop it into their stew when they were cooking their stew to help with iron absorption, because we tend to forget that it's a mineral. And another thing that you can do is cook your dinner in a cast iron pot. It helps with iron absorption. Two, other things, think of leafy greens, think of nuts and seeds. Algae are a good source. And also when you're consuming...
Or here's another harebrained
vitamin C
one.
helps with the absorption of iron too.
So does vitamin C, SEA. If you live near the sea, you could swim in the sea in September when there's lots of iodine and other minerals in the sea, and you could potentially absorb the iron through your skin.
That was beautiful, Dave.
That's amazing.
I'm not exactly sure on the science behind it, but it sounds good.
Should I, before swimming, I'm thinking about when you're doing like a roast or something, should I puncture my skin with a compass? Just to maximize the marinade. Basting myself in brine. That's nice. Nicole says, I love David and Stephen's burgers. Not a euphemism. So my question to them is, I made your jerk burger last year. I did not see where that question was going, I'm sorry. And it went down a storm with my housemate. This is getting worse. What's your favorite burger that you've both made, and can I have the recipe?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was going to go with something funny. I better not. So we did a whole series. I remember with YouTube, like how we got into YouTube was back a number of years ago. We got an email from Jamie Oliver's team wondering if we joined their FoodTube family and produce, 1 or 2 videos a week and publish it up. And we were kind of like the vegan dads, and we were Irish, and it was like, great, cool. And we started doing it. And YouTube is often the weird and the wonderful, and you're kind of focused on engagement. So often you got to go down, how can we get an edge to this? How can we make this a bit different? What can we do? And 1 month we decided, Shawnee, who we call him the shredder, so he shoots, edits, and uploads our YouTube videos. And Shawnee had this idea, why don't we rename February Febburgery? And we just published nothing but burger recipes for February. And we tried it for 2 years. We had a good laugh with it.
And we did 8 recipes each month. So we each time. So we did. So you're coming up with lots, and we've probably published 50 different burger recipes already. So we ended up starting doing arancini burgers and burrito burgers and a lasagna burger using. Lasagna burger. I remember we had lasagna burger, and we had we had a jerk burger, and we had loads
Japanese
of different
umami burgers.
We had all sorts of crazy harebrained ones. So.
I'm going to go with, there's a beetroot burger that we just came up with a recipe there, an 8-ingredient one where we made a vegan feta out of tofu and cashew nuts, and it was with walnuts, and it was really delicious. It was very, grounded, substantial, earthy, and just delicious.
I think the burger can often just be the substrate to the sauces which you put on it. So sometimes I find that the burger is less important, and what's more important is the pestos, the relishes, the mayonnaise, the tomatoes, the lettuces inside the bun that has more of an impact.
And I'm going to call out, she asked for a recipe. What was our friend's name again?
It was Nicole.
Okay, Nicole, darling, this recipe is for you. This is for a beetroot, walnut, and feta burger recipe. So, this recipe takes 40 minutes and it serves 4. Would you like the intro, Jake?
Yeah, do it all. Why not?
These were always so popular in our cafe, so here's an easier version that still tastes fab. They go great, served with your favorite hummus on top and a quick salad. So, you will need 400 grams of uncooked beetroot, 10 scallions.
Question, Stephen, is uncooked beetroot raw beetroot?
Correct.
Okay.
10 scallions, as we call them in Ireland, or spring onions, as you call them across the water. 80 grams of vegan cheddar-style cheese, 50 grams of cashew nuts, 10 grams of firm tofu, 140 grams of toasted walnuts, 4 tablespoons of finely chopped fresh mint, 100 grams of breadcrumbs, juice of 1 lemon, and 150 gram dollop of hummus of choice. There you go, Nicole.
Sounds
Now,
good.
that's an interesting list of ingredients. What do I do with them? Do you want a method? Or
Well, you could figure it out from the ingredients, I'd say.
yeah,
combine
those flavors. So you'll toast the nuts and then you'll break
fry.
the beetroot and then bring it all together and bake.
Cook it all in the pan and mix it all into a ball and lash it in the pan. Or lash it in the oven.
That sounds awesome.
Winner,
It's
winner.
funny, lots of people have been extolling the virtue of beetroot in a burger. I think the last 3 shows we've talked about beetroot burgers, and I'm ready to believe you.
Those ones were really good. Those ones were.
They were good, yeah.
They
were
would
good.
challenge the preconception of the earthy, that
Yeah.
kind of astringent like beetroot note. These
That
were
kind
good.
of brown sandly one.
Those are the ones. I do love the smell of a good whole food shop, though. It's a very particular smell, isn't it?
Yeah, of patchouli.
It's like, yeah, I guess it is. Yeah,
Patchouli, incense, and spices or something.
yeah. Exactly. This is sort of the bins of stuff. It's like the smell of a hardware shop. It's just unmistakable. And hopefully you'll never confuse the two. Anyway, Corinne says, why is gut health so important, and what is a great gut health recipe I can try? I think we've talked about why it's important, but if you had one recipe that you thought would be really good for gut health, what would you go for?
Yeah, sleep, and I'd say relaxation. Sleep, relaxation, and getting exercise, because the main things you can do for good health are the same as the things which you can do for your normal health. So I'd say, number 1, eat lots of fiber, so eat lots of whole foods. Number 2, move. Movement is so important. All the people that
Does that mean
exercise,
scratch myself or what?
no, that means exercise, get at least 10,000 steps a day.
Scratch others.
Yeah, so scratch others. Chase others around, scratching them. Number 3, spend lots of time in nature, because it's really good for everything. Number 4, prioritize sleep, because we live in a sleep-deprived society. And number 5, avoid unnecessary antibiotics.
Nice. That's a
Thanks,
good tip generally. And finally, Javier says, how many nuts and
Javier.
seeds
It's nice to
should
say
you...
that name, isn't it? Javier. Hola,
Javier.
Javier.
It's one of those words you can't not say, yeah. How many nuts and seeds should you have each day?
1.
26. Thank you very much.
14. I think I'd be a big fan of intuitive eating and just kind of listening to your body. We're mammals and we tend to live a huge amount of our brain.
Now, I think if you look at the mammal like your dog, if you put your dog in your kitchen, you'd eat all the chocolate bars all in one go.
Yeah. And chocolate is poisonous to dogs, and they'd be dead.
Brain, I think is. Anyway, sorry.
Sorry, Stephen.
That's okay. Answer it now.
Guys, no, come on, not now. You've been so close for so long. Please let this not be the moment. Although, actually, if we did capture it, it would be brilliant for the podcast.
I think, Javier, we can all get caught up with seeking perfection and nutrition by numbers, as in we should have, it was 26 you believe to be the correct answer, Jake?
I said 26, yeah.
Yeah, I think 27 is the right answer, Jake. You're wrong. No, I think we can all often get caught up with the pursuit of perfection via diet. And I think health is like a 5-legged stool. And
5 stool. I mean, if you're doing the fiber right, that's about right for a vegan, isn't it?
but a
Per
bit
day?
like a 5-legged stool. And often we can overemphasize or overfocus on food and forget that there's so many other aspects that make up health, such as Dave mentioned, sleep, exercise, how we deal with
Our
stress and our
relationships.
relationships. So I think, I've found where I've pursued perfection with food at the cost of being a bit socially isolated, becoming a bit neurotic and a bit obsessive. And I think...
And almost sometimes it can be a way of masking other holes in your life.
Yeah, so I would suggest, rather than trying to work out the perfect number of nuts or seeds you should consume a day, I would recommend, maybe try to, spend... Anyway, who am I to say?
Try to prioritize eating whole foods and really kind of focus on that. And that would be the main message in terms of food, just not to overcomplicate it and try to eat. There is no perfection, because we're all going to die anyway. So that's not being pessimistic. That's just being realistic. But so it's just about eating more. We keep saying the same thing.
Do your best.
I don't want to bore things.
No, but these are good messages and they're worth reinforcing. And genuinely, it's been so lovely to talk to you both, and your advice has been just really great and genuinely uplifting and heartwarming.
We had a great laugh. That was great crack, Jake. Really.
Can't thank you both enough. Listen, where should people go to find you? Just reiterate your new book and where it is and everything.
If you go to
Do
the
all the
internet,
plugging.
if you go to the internet and you type in the Happy Pear, you'll find us in some form. We'll pop up, I'm sure, because we're quite prolific.
Great SEO, guys.
Yes. Or Instagram or any of those things, or YouTube. But our new book is called The Happy Health Plan. And yeah, thanks to everyone who's bought it, because it's done really,
And sorry
really
if we came across a bit crazy. We had a great time with Jake.
That was great fun. What a laugh.
I hope you enjoyed it.
No, it was brilliant.
I had a ball anyway.
It was super fun. Thank you both so much.
Cheers, Jake.
What an absolute delight those two were. If you've enjoyed the podcast and you haven't subscribed already, do consider doing so. Also, do recommend it to a friend. Word of mouth, they say, is the single greatest way a podcast can grow, meaning that anything I can do this end is going to be nothing compared to a quiet word from you to a friend. Please consider doing so if you'd like the podcast to keep going. Vegan Life magazine is available in shops, also online at veganlifemag.com, or you can download the app. And we'll be back with another episode in a week's time. Don't forget, if you've got any questions about vegan food that you would like answered by professional chefs, you can email podcast@veganlifemag.com. In the meantime, from me, JCap, bye-bye. This has been a Swanburst Media production.